Big split show. Let's get into it.
I need all the wins, yeah. Ain't no L's, I gotta get a no call and quits, yeah. Gotta keep on moving no matter how hard.
Here comes Danny Tusizawa, back to Baker, Baker with the fin. Kurt Baker in for DC, and this may well do it Old Glory with the drive. The New Zealand Sevens legend, Kurt Baker with the cherry on top.
Can you believe it?
Hello and welcome back to the On the Line Rugby Pod, a show brought to you by the Believe Sports Network. I'm your host, Mike Nagaishi, and welcome back. You know, we have a lot of big things to glean from this week. You know, pool stages are basically ending, starting to become eliminator games. A lot of teams jockeying for those quarterfinal spots. Really excited to see what happens. We have our team of the tournament this week, and of course, a little bit of sprinkling of MLR news. We got a split show. Let's get into it. I think the three biggest eliminators that matter to me, at least in my viewing expertise, it would be England, Samoa, Japan and Argentina, and Ireland and Scotland. Obviously for Ireland and Scotland, for obvious reasons, you know, the Springboks could be eliminated with an Ireland win. It's going to be a real tough tournament for them. It's going to be very big in the trenches. You know, both teams are stacked up to the wall with their best players. This to them could be their World Cup final. You know, for Scotland, obviously they're jockeying to keep themselves in that contention. Ireland's looking to get themselves back into the quarterfinal stages. Hopefully not an exit for this time around, as per the curse, but you know, you never really know. I personally have Ireland, unfortunately, winning by 10 and locking the Springboks out of the quarterfinals. I just don't know how it will work. You know, for Scotland to roll. They've been playing a mixture of very either up-tempo and very spirited play through their open play standards, and then other games they just look lost and sloppy. You know, you can't have inconsistencies when it comes to these test stage battles, especially ones that decide your future in the World Cup. And because of that, I just can't reasonably say that with the Irish playing the way they are, with Johnny Sexton leading the boys, I can't say for certain that Scotland will take anything over a +3 margin away from Ireland. So Ireland by 10. I think for Japan and Argentina, I think that's more of a interesting battle to me, just because I like watching the Japanese. They're a really fun team to watch. You know, for a lot of people in the World Cup stages, you know, maybe their second team is like a Fiji or a Georgia or, you know, the All Blacks. I think a lot of people have been maybe not sleeping because Japan has been going off in the last couple World Cups, but forgetting what kind of work rate and efficiency levels that the Japanese and the Brave Blossoms can bring to the table. You know, they still have probably the top work rate in the World Cup stages. They're definitely a team to watch. You know, they fight hard every play. They still have a little bit of, you know, that razzle dazzle with Kotaro Matsushima and Ryota Nakamura. And they definitely have the power with Kazuki Himeno and Michael Leitch. But I think this one is going to boil down to how the defense plays out. You know, obviously facing Los Pumas, they're going to be facing a hard defensive and kicking battle. I would say the Los Pumas closely represent South Africa with a little bit of wheels here and there on both sides. Julian Montoya will obviously be leading the boys with Pablo Matera. That's going to be an emotional linchpin for them. But it's just really going to come down to how they win over the gain line. You know, can they maintain possession of the ball? Can they keep the big boys in the Pumas jerseys off of their breakdowns? And can Ryota Nakamura rally the troops enough on the back lines to really call that offense and just set space the way he does? Nakamura is probably, you know, I would argue one of the top 5. He's definitely in the top 10, but my top 5 centers in world rugby. You know, he has a mixture of just consistency across the board. He has the running of lines that you want, you know, that eye for gaps, that always looking for the support line, kicking the ball, moving it past the gain line. He has a little bit of power. He has that sneaky gliding speed, not obviously as gliding as, say, a Will Jordan, but, you know, he has that ability to just not really get that second gear, but just kind of maintain it over the course of his line break. He also has amazing passing and grubbing play. I would say that his ability to just pass a skip pass over a defender, 2 defenders, 3 defenders, he did that in the World Cup in 2019, showed it off to great efficiency, great effect. Nakamura is probably the way that they run their attack lines. Obviously, Matsushima is, their finisher. They don't have a lot of their backs from the prior World Cup, but Matsushima remains. That guy is a menace whenever he's in the ball in hand. The magic happens. And I think the biggest question for them, at least with the Brave Blossoms, is will Kazuki Himeno fully return back to form? I wasn't able to watch a lot of the games, but just looking at the way his stat lines have shown up in his 3 appearances, they're kind of a mixed bag. From the highlights I was able to watch, Himeno, unfortunately, looks like he may have lost a step. I'm not sure if he's injured or something, but he's playing a little hot and cold, and I'm hoping he returns back to form. His last couple of matches have been a slight climb up, gradual, back to what I think he used to be. So I hope that, he's just getting out of a funk. Hopefully we'll see what happens, because when Kazuki Himeno plays in form, I think the world needs to watch out, because that guy he's something special. As for England, Samoa, I think, outside of my absolute distaste for England as a squad, Samoa and England both stacked their squads. For them, if Samoa beats England, they could be out of their quarterfinal spot. I sure hope that they do. I would personally have Samoa by 3-5, maybe a unconverted try or a converted drop goal. I certainly see them having promise in this match. They're coming in with a lot of fire. They're winning a lot of these tight matchups, and obviously in test matches, that's what you need. I think the biggest thing for them is their overseas supply of players, from former All Blacks. You have your usuals, your Stephen Luatuas, you have your Alatoas, but man, they really loaded up with Slam Slade coming in. You have, let's see, who else? You have Christian Leali'ifano, Lima Sopoaga, who ironically, I'm not sure if he still got his tee back, but hopefully he did. Obviously that's kind of, well, not really funny, but more along the lines of just strange that you would steal a tee of all things from the field. But outside of that, they bring a lot of fire into their squad. With the overseas players they bring a lot of power. They bring a lot of experience, and that's something you need in these later matches. And against England, for a guy like Leali'ifano, who's played in these tight matches, who's played in blowouts, he's perfect to come off the bench, lead the squad, manage the boys, and keep that fire going. And Lima Sopoaga off the tee, man, that guy is no slouch. I think that was his biggest asset when he was with the All Blacks. There's a ton of things to look out for. You have guys from Moana Pacifica coming up. They're more or less, their development in Super Rugby has proven that they're ready for this stage. You have Miracle Faingalagi coming in. Apologies if I butchered the name, debuting for this game, and I'm super excited for that. He was a absolute beast in the NPC and in Super Rugby. I can't wait to see him on the live stage tomorrow. It's going to be fun. I still, as much as I think that England bring in that level of consistency within the squad selection, I don't know what's going on with them this year. So, yeah, up Manu Samoa, baby. But we're rolling with it. And those, I think, will be the quarterfinal selections. I hope my quarterfinal selection of Fiji still matters. South Africa, I hope, makes it. Obviously, I have selected Ireland to win. I would love to see Japan also in a quarterfinal spot as well. Let's move on to our team of the pools. I selected these players. A lot of them are automatics. Some of them you can kind of expect to be in those spots. But, I think for me, it was just dominance in what they do. Whether it's enforcing on the field, whether it's paving gaps and running the ball, whether it's set piece, these guys have set themselves apart, at least to me, in the eye test in ways that pop off the screen. They show what they bring to the table, no matter what their age is, or they bring in something for the future for that team that I think matters. I have 4 honorable mention spots. I will go over them first. I have Angus Bell for Australia. Man, that guy, my stalwart fantasy prop for the Taz. He is a menace. I think he's really come into his own this year with his ability to run the ball on the test stage. His line breaks, his offloading skills, his tackling. Geez, I there's nothing really to say that he doesn't do well. I really expect him to be that linchpin for Australia in the front row. I think he's replaced James Slipper in that role, and hopefully we'll see him for many years to come in that spot, further growing into his own and developing the modern day prop game. I think my second spot will have to go to George North, simply because, in his appearances for Wales, he has done exceptional, whether it's from defense, running lines. Obviously, George North has had a little up and down years since his last World Cup in 2019, where he was a freak of nature. I think he's finally returning to that. Wales look like a man possessed. I really expect them to do well this year. Hopefully a semifinal spot for them. We will see. Third spot will have to go to Damien McKenzie. I would have put him at 10 if it wasn't for Dan Bigger. Spoilers for the 10 jersey. But whenever McKenzie's on the field for the All Blacks, magic happens. I think he was a better selection than Richie Mo'unga. I think the only reason why they selected Mo'unga at 10 more than not was because of his further test experience at the jersey. I think as McKenzie grows into it, he is the future at the All Black 10 jersey for the time being. And I think he's supplanted Beauden Barrett's push for it, despite his very frenzied approach to this World Cup in form. I think we're going to have to move into Jack Morgan as my final spot. The captain for Wales, man, what can I say? He's brought in on defense. A lot of dominant tackles I've seen flash off the screen. He does set piece well off the lineup. He is a freak. Just his ability to attack the immediate pod line, give themselves an immediate option. Obviously, that went first score against Australia, among other things. And I mean, he just does everything consistently well. I think he's a good captain for Wales. I think he's moved himself above the Alan Wynne-Jones. He's taking over that role of just leading the boys out into the pitch, and he runs it. Oh, I totally forgot. Whoopsies. I think the fourth honorable mention spot is going to have to go to Kenan Moody. A lot of questions were into the World Cup as to how South Africa will attack their center jerseys. Will they move Kenan Moody out? Would they put in someone else? Would they just slot in the best players on the pitch? And, I think off of defense, off the ball and on the ball, Kenan Moody has proven himself to be that kind of player for the test stage. I would love to see him on the wing, but I think he has a future if he wants it at that 13 jersey with Andre Esterhuizen. That could be the new center pairing for the Bach. Yes, I said it, and I will own it. That is a hill I will die on. They were the center pairing for the Bach this year. Win or lose, they were amazing. Off the ball, he had tackles out the wazoo. His ability to create turnovers like Kurtley Arnsa is amazing. And obviously, everyone knows his speed and finishing is above the rest. That's going to do it for my honorable mentions. Let's move on. Again, I will only be highlighting certain players, players that would be maybe surprising or not. To my selection for my 15, but we'll be moving forward. It's going to be Benta Maifuna at prop for Tonga. Malcolm Marks, I had to put him in there, despite him getting ruled out because of his knee injury. When he was on the field, he's on the field, whether it's provincial tests and now World Cup stage, he shows out. He's my number 2 all time, probably. You have Beka Gigashvili for Georgia. Georgians have probably arguably the second best scrum in World Rugby. And wow, he continued to show out, whether it's tackles, scrum play, set piece, especially off the line out, absolute menace. You have Togburn, Eben Etzebeth. I had to include the Irish and South African enforcers in this unit. They played well, despite what the fantasy numbers show. I don't care about that. They did gangbusters. I think my back row is probably the most interesting of the lineup. I have Michael Leach at 6. What can I say that hasn't been said about him? Dude's a menace. He leads Japan onto the pitch when it's not Kazuki Himeno captaining like a true professional. He rallies the boys. He leads by example. He hits rucks faster than anyone for his age. He runs around the field better than most. And, he's just he's like the Toyota of the Japanese team. He'll just continually run no matter how much mileage is on the tank, how much you abuse him. He's going to be there leading the boys. And I think that matters the most. You have Charles Olivon at 8. For France, wow, he really put on a show this year. A lot of people probably could argue that I probably should have put Paul Malvaca in at number 2. I just can't. Malcolm Marx is just a freak. But Charles Olivon has really proven himself to be that 8-man, that loose forward for the French. I expect them to go far this year despite losing all their players. And Olivon will be leading the charge at that spot. Juan Martin Gonzalez, I wasn't expecting an Argentinian to make my team of the pool stages, but, I can't help it. He flies off the screen. His ability to lead from the defensive line, attack the ball no matter where it is. He great defense. He moves players down the line. I think leadership was the biggest thing for me in dominant tackles, and he brings it to the pitch. 9 is probably the biggest surprise for most of you. It's Cam Roygaard. Wow. I was not expecting the young Hurricane to show up on the field and show out the way he did. Everyone saw in Super Rugby, for those of you who watched, his ability from the pick and go, his attacking from that spot, and his defense is, while not the greatest, it is there. And, his attacking form, I think, is going to carry him to be the future in the All Black 9 jersey after Aaron Smith. He only has, up to go up from here. And wow, I was wholly impressed with the way he manages to handle himself on the test stage. He's going to be there definitely when it's all said and done for New Zealand. 10, I think it's no surprise that I'm going to go for Dan Biggar. Obviously I've mentioned it before. Dan Biggar has had a resurgence this World Cup, whether it's on the defensive side, whether it's that fire, that intensity, that enforcer standpoint. He brings everything to the table and leaves nothing on the pitch. And I think that has everything to be said about this Wales squad. He exemplifies what the Welsh bring to the table. He sets up tries better than most. I think, his management of the attack, and including when they do double, triple pivots, has shown out to be amazing. I think bringing in Warren Gatland has brought in that level of consistency, that level of stability that Biggar needed after all these 4 years of just struggle for the Welsh. I am proud to say that the Wales team will move up, and it will be Dan Biggar leading the boys to hopefully, I'm not going to say a Webb Ellis Trophy just yet, but I will say at least a semifinal appearance. Book it. They are there. Same thing with Louis Rees-Zammit. I can't really say what hasn't been said already. Louis Rees-Zammit has just been a freak of nature his entire career. He had a couple down years, but this World Cup, he has turned it back up again, and I can't wait to see that for the Welsh. You have your obvious in the centers. You have your Fijian flair. I have Semi Radradra for obvious reasons, and Waisia Nyasalevu. Apologies if I butchered the name. Fijian flair. That's all I have to say. Damien Penaud is going to round out my wingers. The guy put on a clinic. I was wholly happy to see him ball out the way he did, especially against New Zealand in the World Cup pool stages. Dude's amazing. Nothing more. Beauden Barrett rounds out at the 15 jersey. I would have put him at 10, but obviously Biggar is taking that spot away. Beauden Barrett has shown up and shown out in so many ways. Obviously in Super Rugby, he tried to make that push for the 10 jersey. He didn't really get it. I don't know why. They should just line him up at 10. I see what they're trying to say with the double pivot and his ability off the boot, as well as his downhill running style, but he operates best when he's flat at the line, giving people the ball, pump faking it, taking flat ball, eyeing for the snipe. He is that guy. I don't know why. I can't say this enough. Put Beauden Barrett at 10 for the love of God. But hey, David McKenzie is there. I'm happy for him, and that's all that matters. And that's going to be it for my team of the pools. And let's just see what is going on in the MLR. A lot of big news. Let's get into it. The East Coast has been probably the biggest, I would say, in terms of news creation for the MLR side. You're looking at from the move of ATL, the resurgence of Toronto. You got the Old Glory signing everyone across the yard, and now the Free Jacks have entered into that sweepstakes with the loss of their coach in Mike Rogers. He will be leaving to coach Manawatu in the New Zealand NPC. He was their kicking and defensive coordinator. I would say he was very instrumental in putting in not only the amazing defense that they had over the last few years, but in the development of Reese McDonald, John Poland, and Mitch Wilson, all in the ways that he's appointed to do. Their kicking game has been amazing. Obviously Reese McDonald is that sidestepper, that hot stepper off the back end. He mostly plays at 15, but he can slot at 10. But his management of the game, I think, has gone up because of Mike Rogers at the position. John Poland's grubbing skills have been off the chain throughout most of the world, most of their stages. And obviously Mitch Wilson, the USA Eagle, has developed big time over the last few years because of Rogers, and it will be sad to see him go. No new coaching appointments have been announced yet as of this recording. I'm going to assume that they're going to go next man up because of that, but perhaps they haven't announced it because of a coaching search. I cannot wait to see, if that's the case, what the Jacks will sign. Their neighbors down in DC have obviously made tons of moves, but I think some of these are more instrumental in to see what kind of brand of rugby they're trying to do. Spoiler alert, they're trying to go for more power, more downhill performance, and I can't wait to see it. It's going to be the signings of Axel Muller, and Damian Hoyland. Both of them are 29. Muller has come from Argentina, currently has played in France for the last 5 years. And Cabriver, again, apologies if I butchered it. In the limited film, I've been able to see, the Argentinian standout has just been more of an upright power winger. He has great running lines. I wouldn't say he has the greatest burst. I think that's the one thing I have noticed in the 2 minutes worth of, I think it was 3 tries worth of film that I got to watch. But, if they're trying to go for more of that downhill, bully you down the line, Oklahoma drill style approach, I'm all for it. He could be an interesting player. Just need to watch more film to see what happens. Why don't they have more film of this guy? I think the biggest thing for them would be Damian Hoyland, bringing in more experience. He's a Centurion. He has played for the Scottish Sevens team as well as the 15s team. He played for Barbarians, and on top of that, he's played for the great team of Edinburgh. Wow. I did not expect them to sign Hoyland to this roster. He brings a lot to the table that Old Glory desperately needed. I think on a defensive standpoint, he has what it takes to really set the tone, whether it's looking for snipes, hitting players. His tackling when he gets downhill is nasty. He has a couple dominant hits here and there throughout his film that I think all of you Old Glory fans and MLR fans in general need to watch. He will be a unit out there on the blindside wing. And on top of that, he has one of the more nastier fens that you'll see probably on that team's roster, whether it's on the pack or the backs. He can push off people effortlessly. I'm not going to say it's on the level of, the beast mode boy, Marshawn Lynch himself, but it's pretty damn close. Get off me, he said. We'll be seeing that a lot this year. I can't wait for it. Hey, Julian Dominguez, your number has been called. This could be the big Fen competition to see who can take that spot for the MLR this year. He is an absolute glider too when it comes to running. He's not what I would consider a burner, but he has sneaky fast Jordy Nelson speed. He's a long strider. He moves gracefully throughout the line. I can't wait to see him play. Old Glory has been probably the Cinderella story for me this year, and they're going to be again. Hopefully, they're going to be a team to watch. My Chicago Hounds finally doing something, in my opinion, for the offseason, because, wow, they showed up to play in this free agency period. They signed Nick McCarthy and Ben Landry, both USA Eagles. We'll start off with McCarthy. McCarthy is a former Irish 9. He joins the USA Eagles for his debut this summer. Obviously the 62-time Leinster cap 9. brings a lot to the table from that championship pedigree. Hopefully he brings a little bit of that Leinster culture into the MLR. I think the biggest thing would, for at least the inclusion of him, would be I think this shows a move to go away from the Sydney Shoops of the line, who did bringing defensive capabilities and obviously that Faf de Klerk level of tomfoolery, to the lineup. You can tell where they're trying to go for, and they're trying to go for more pick and go scores, and that's exactly what McCarthy brings. I think the biggest thing that flies off the page for him is once he sees a gap, he's gone. He's kind of that Cam Roygaard, Finley Christie level for the MLR standards. He brings in a lot of eye in the gap, looking for offloads, constantly playing the ball, great support lines. He is a runner's 9, and I can't wait to see him play in that. I haven't gotten to see a lot of his defensive film. I can't imagine it's that bad if he's on the Eagles and playing in Leinster. Leinster's a textbook team. They're the Crusaders of the North. It's amazing to watch them play, and hopefully he brings a lot to the table for them. Wow. I think the biggest thing of this signing in terms of Landry is what Seattle thinks of their fire sale. They're not on the level, obviously, as ATL, but I think they're trying to play chess where everyone else is playing checkers, because Landry is something else. I've watched him probably through most of my time watching the MLR since 2018. Landry flies off the page when he's healthy. They have 39 MLR caps. All of them, only 3 not being starts, I think shows to his ability of, not only just leadership, but his finishing ability on the field. Obviously he brings that power. He brings that force at the lineout, and he's an enforcer, man. That guy gets in the paint when it comes to, getting in someone's face, riling them up, and just setting the tone for that team. Hopefully he brings it to a forward pack that looked lost in the set piece, especially at scrum time. They looked hopeless, and hopefully he brings in that leadership role. Obviously, as a USA Eagle, he brings in that little bit of that pedigree. I don't know for how much that means to most people, because in my opinion, they're a tier 3 nation, if that even exists. But you'll be getting a huge player on the defense, which they lacked big time. I think everyone can tell that Chicago did not have a defense last year. It was a Big 12 offense, certification of the Midwest, I guess. But yeah, he brings it to the pitch. He has 332 tackles that basically through that average. You could say he averages about 10 tackles a game. In his 36 starts, he has 22 dominant tackles, almost a dominant tackle a game. He puts people on the ground in surprising fashion. And on top of that, obviously, as a runner, he has amazing ability to push the game line forward as a forward with 1605 meters run. Chicago is really showing out. I hope that they bring in more players like this. I hope they bring in more coaching shakeup. For the love of God, they need it. Obviously, I will be looking out for Old Glory in Toronto. Their rebrand this year has been interesting. ATL has been interesting / LA. But those would be my teams to watch. Can't wait for the eliminator stages to finish. Can't wait for quarterfinals. Let's get into it, boys. Hope you enjoyed the show. See you on Monday.